How's it going, guys? Today we're going to be leveling Cleave on a Berserker. So what Cleave does, character swings their weapon or both weapons if dual wielding in an arc, damaging monsters in an area in front of them. Only works with axes and swords. Now Cleave was buffed this league to give it +2 to weapon range at max level. So it will take a while before we start to see any effect over previous leagues. Have my character geared up in Act 1. We've got Cleave on, throwing a red beak, got Gold Rim, got Wanderlust, got basic gear, and let's go. Alright, here we are in Tidal Island. First big pack of enemies here, and there's some Cleave. They just all went down. One big swipe. Boom. Oh. It's working good right off the bat, but I have some decent gear to go off with. So I'll know how it's going to fare as we keep progressing, but so far, so good. Here's some Hail Rake. How do you like some Cleave, buddy? Get wrecked. Right, I threw on the Screaming Eagle at level 6, and now let's see what Warrior Training does. This gives +2 melee strike range, and melee skills have 12% increased area of effect. Let's kind of look at, let's see. When I cleave this way, I'm not getting to the edge of this table here with my Cleave from this exact spot. So let's see what happens when we put this. What does that do? I am getting a little closer. Still not quite to the edge of the table. Just about there. But it's definitely going to help because the AoE has felt pretty awful so far. Coming up on Brutus here, I've got Cleave linked with Onslaught, Maim, and Chance to Bleed. And there goes Brutus. Piece of cake. Alright, here goes Mervail. Biggest issue I'm having at the moment feels like accuracy. Chance to hit is 83% on the Cleave. So on my passive tree, I'm trying to push up to Resolute Technique before I do anything else. Seems like the smartest early play. I feel like my weapons are already getting outclassed. But some decent damage. Alrighty, there's Act 1 down. Alright, we are at Vaal. Now, I switched in to using Wide Swing, which opens up at level 18. This supports Socketed Gems by area effect, gives +2 weapon range. So now my Cleave's looking a little nicer, but I lost a lot of attack speed in doing so. I've also got a Corrupting Fever now. I'm running Herald of Purity and Flesh and Stone, which I have linked to Maim. So enemies maimed by the skill taking increased physical damage when maimed. So that's where we're at. We're kind of chunking away at Vaal here. He's going to go down again. But it's looking okay. My links are currently melee fizz damage, rage, and life tap. Because once we started getting into a 5-link territory, the mana wasn't capable of keeping up with how much I wanted to reserve here. So went ahead and did that. And then yeah, Flesh and Stone plus Maim. Enemies maimed by supported skills take 10% increased physical damage, and then in Blood Stance this maims nearby enemies they take 18% increased physical damage. Now the end goal is not to be using a two-hander. We'll switch to one-handers at some point. But I got Flesh and Spirit in here. I got like Leap Slam, Ancestral Protector, linked to Life Tap and faster attacks. Put on a Feast Bind. So it's giving me some Fizz Leech, extra Blast Charges, extra Mana Regen, Flat Fizz. Really nice belt for leveling. These drop all over the place in this league, so that is pretty nifty. And we're getting some Rampage going on. We've got Blood Rage. Since I'm using this big two-hander, I'm not getting lots of rage stacks, so that will pick up once I can get through first lab and start getting an extra like stacking rage buff because I'm only getting like 1 rage per hit, but having rampage, we're getting frenzy charges, just building stuff up, and once I get a 10 rage, the flat fizz kicks in. We've got the corrupting fever, just kind of stacking extra fizz damage wherever possible. Had to drop the chance to bleed, which we are going to be trying to do. So what is it called? Red Storm Bleed, Crimson Dance bleed action going on. Things are progressing fairly well. We'll see how it goes after we start getting some more rage with the Berserker. Lots of updates here in Act 3 just for you. Dominus still using all of the same gear. However, we've gotten a lot of new gems. So, let's start off with Warlord's Mark. Warlord's Mark has been changed since the last time that I've seen it. And now grants you 20 rage regenerated over 1 second if you stun the cursed enemy. So this has been a great way to boost up my rage as I'm like entering a fresh zone, so I'm not having to slowly like chip away at enemies. It's also pretty cool. And since I'm running with Doge Raised Damning, that allows me an additional curse, which I have a vulnerability. The cursed enemies take increased physical damage, very similar to Flesh and Stone, just stacking that extra fizz. And I think that's just about it there. Passive tree wise, I came down here to get a dexterity so that I could throw on a blood rage so I can get frenzy charges while clearing, as if I needed more speed at this point. Came down here, got brakesmanship. This is extra AoE and extra melee skill strike range, and Master of the Arena also gives melee strike range as well, getting me some life regen. So that's what I did with the passive tree. We got our ascendancy. This is Brave the Slaughter. You get 10 max rage, and I gain rage on hit with attacks no more than once every 0.3 seconds, and that stacks on top of the grant 1 rage no more than every 0.4 seconds while using supported skill with rage. So every 0.4 seconds I can generate 2 rage on hit. Let's do this. Okay, so I'm going to try and curse one of these enemies with a Warlord's Mark, and hopefully I can stun them. So there we go. Got him. Oh, I did not see the rage pop up. Let's try and curse a lesser enemy here, maybe. I don't have enough damage to get this guy. Let's hit that. There we go. And then my rage just popped up. I destroyed one of these little totems. So now I have my rage stacked all the way up to 60, and that's not going to go anywhere for the rest of this fight. And I can just focus on cursing with vulnerability, and yeah, we got some damage now. And I could be using the Ancestral War Chief to give myself extra damage. I didn't swap that in yet. Let's just do that real quick. Right there. So now I'll be getting extra flat damage, or extra damage from having the totem down rather than the speed. Nope. Not gonna hit me with that. Alright, there's phase 1 of that. Now we wait. Another passive point. I don't know where to put this one now. I do want to get into some bleed stuff, but that's kind of further down the road. You know what? Let's get some extra life. There we go. That'll work. And I do still have these like one-handed nodes because I'm going to want to use one-handed stuff. I could swap these up to butchery. That'd probably help me more like in the here and now. But we'll roll with it. I don't have life flasks. Okay, we have an enduring cry though. That will do it. And there we go. Act 3 down, still cruising along. Wonder, can I equip any of my gear yet? Rislatha's Coil? This belt increases the max amount of fizz damage you do, but lowers the lower amount of fizz damage you do. So it kind of turns your fizz roll into like more like lightning damage kind of thing. So right here I have 762 to 1176. So if I put this belt on, that gap's going to get bigger. Now it says 439 to 1556. Not the worst thing. If your attacks with hits were lucky or something, maybe this would be really nice. I don't know if this is quite the way, unless you have something to remove this stun duration, maybe, or to get a nice corrupt on that. I think the better belt's gonna be Bear's Girdle, but we still got a ways to go. Alrighty, here is Malachai. Doesn't look like he wants to be stunned either. So Warlord's Mark doesn't seem to do super much against bosses unless you're really, like, bringing, like, big slams or something, probably. It's the Warlord's Mark's really nice to, like, boost the rage, but I don't know that it has, like, a guaranteed place in this build. But I haven't changed anything at all. Getting through Act 4, still using the wide swing. It's getting through things pretty nicely. It's not res capped. So what else did I do here? I got some life regeneration in Hardy, because that was my biggest downside to where things were at the time. You know, Pierre got Soul of Steel, get some extra armor, gonna grab Bloodless next. Then I'm not really sure. Kind of winging this as I do. Alright, there we go. Malachai went down okay, but starting to seem like I might need to swap out of the current weapon setup as we progress in Act 5. We are at Kitava. I switched into Rigwald's Charge, which is kind of thematically accurate considering I'm trying to make this a Rigwald's one-hander build. Threw on Mark of Submission, so this can apply vulnerability for me, so no longer casting that. And I have Mark on Hit with the Warlord's Mark, but Mark on Hit with Warlord's Mark doesn't mean I can cast it on a white enemy and stun that enemy for the rage. So, I don't know, it seems like it'd probably be a better use for like a Poacher's Mark for the extra flat fizz against the enemies. But, that's what I have for now. Curse an enemy with it, I don't know that it's doing me much good. It is giving me the life and mana leech, which is nice. But beyond that, I can't say that it's doing me too many favors. I've toyed around with the idea of throwing in multi-strike, which if the end goal is to use Crimson Storm, I feel like that will be the play, but it still just might be better to do like one like big hit with a bleed. I don't know. We'll get to toy with that. Yeah, this was quite the damage upgrade from what I was doing with the wide swing still. Lost some AoE, that's for sure though. A lot of accuracy on this weapon too. So it's possible there's a chance I could drop Resolute Technique. Start working in some crit chance stuff. Because crit chance is going to be needed eventually if I'm going to want to get Flawless Savagery and Blitz. Blitz charge is going to be a stupid amount of speed, which is the idea I'm going for. I don't know, like, I was reading Rite of Ruin, and I don't know if Rite of Ruin is what I want. Because if I'm going to have, like, 100 max rage almost, this is probably not the play. Losing 10% of life per second. That's, I just don't see that being like, I'd probably be better off taking Aspect of Carnage, or maybe even Warbringer. Warbringer can generate me rage really easily, but I don't know that there's an like exert from a Warcry that's really going to work with Cleave, because it's not a slam, it's not a strike skill. Like, what am I going to exert on Cleave? I don't know that there's anything there, but we'll keep going. Rule Lab is done. Now it's, what do I take here? I think I'm going to take Warbringer for now. Warcries can't grant 10 rage per 5 power if you have less than 25 rage. Because putting Warlord's Mark on Hit just doesn't do anything for me. And this should be able to give me rage at the start of a zone. Now, this also says Warcries sacrifice 10 rage if you have more than 25. And exerted attacks deal 50% more attack damage if a Warcry sacrificed rage recently. So doing more attack damage is not going to mean more bleed damage, I don't think. Could be interesting. If we're going to make use of that, we need to be able to exert attacks. So I went ahead and got a Rallying Cry. I looked through all of the Warcries. This seemed like the only one that had a chance to really do anything for me. Because there's one for strike attacks, there's one for slams. This one kind of seems to work well with Herald of Purity because you're summoning allies. And exert attacks deal more damage per affected ally up to 25%. So if I have lots of allies out, I do more damage with my hits. And it says exerted attacks deal 5% more damage. I don't know if that would affect the bleed either. So, still not quite sure. But it also gives you extra, like, flat attack damage, which is also really interesting. So, 3% per 5 power up to max of 20. I don't know. It seems like it's doing okay. It's, like, I definitely have minions, so let's finish out Act 7 here and see how it's going. So, other updates. I threw on Belly of the Beast, get myself some resistances, as well as the Carnage Heart, also give me some resistances. And I threw on Hemophilia Gloves, so that I can explode bleeding enemies. Passive tree-wise, I pushed up here to get Berserking for the plus 10 to max Rage. Grabbed Constitution there. Pushing over here to get this bleed stuff. And I grabbed Admonisher because this is increased War Cry cooldown recovery rate. So I've already been testing out this Rallying Cry. And I grabbed the bleed notes here to get some extra bleed chance. I get 20% bleed chance from the vulnerability that's being applied on hit. So yeah, I've got 4 allies here. So my War Cry, I get 5 exerted attacks, and it's gonna like really buff the damage that they do. I don't see the bleed explosions really like doing too much for me. If I'm being honest, maybe be better to go with the Rage Regen Gloves, but at the same time, like I'm now at this Rage, so I War Cry here, and now for 4 seconds, I'm dealing big extra damage on these exerted attacks, and getting the cooldown recovery rate allows me to use that more often. And since I'm generating like 2 rage per hit, I can get that 10 rage I sacrifice back really easily, and like I have that just boost. Into zone 2, so I gotta reset everything here. I forget it a lot, but turning on my Corrupting Fever and Blood Rage is definitely gonna help things. And let's War Cry. That got me to 19. There wasn't enough power nearby, I guess. I think I might have stunned an enemy there because I shot up like 20. And since I'm not using the Enduring Cry anymore, I don't have a good way to gain endurance charges currently. So the way I'm gaining endurance charges at the moment is I'm using Leap Slam to give me endurance charge on melee stun. Just like as long as I'm like leaping into packs, it pretty generously like stuns enemies with the Leap Slams, so it's not too much of an issue. I haven't leveled this Blood Rage, so it falls off, but eventually I'm not going to have to worry about that. Alright, made it to the boss. Got Einhar here to help. Now, this boss isn't going to walk around, so the bleed's not going to do any extra damage. But almost up to max rage already, which is nice. The Ancestral Warchief is also not going to do anything to help my bleed damage. It just affects more melee damage. Like, I need stuff that increases physical damage. Alright, and there goes our Arakaali. Okay, so I just put on General's Cry. General's Cry performs a war cry taunting nearby enemies to attack the user and summoning Mirage Warriors from nearby corpses. So there needs to be corpses. The Mirage Warriors each use a linked attack skill once before dissipating. Attacks with support skills count as exerted. So okay, if the attacks from the minions count as exerted, then as long as I sacrifice rage, I don't know. Does that mean that the minions are going to do the more damage? I don't know. Let's see what this does. Okay, I summoned one. Now it's going to last how long? Okay, not long. So I need corpses. Let's get this. Let's get my other minions out. So they only do it once. Well, it's kind of cool. They can cleave. That's what I wanted to see. I wanted to see like what happens when these minions cleave. But seeing as how they only go at it once before they dissipate, they can only use it. Maybe it scales as the gym levels. No, it does not look like you can scale the number of attacks that they do. I like the idea of more cleave, but I don't think that's the play. If we're gonna use the second curse, it's probably got to be the Enduring Cry instead of the General's Cry. And I can throw my steel skin back in there. Still have 2 war cries here. And then I can drop the endurance charge on melee stun. Should smooth things up a little bit. And then as long as I can for sure get endurance charges, this has +3 dot multi for bleeding per endurance charge. So could be a nice source of survivability and damage. Final push. Let's go get Kitava. So I have upgraded weapon. The damage on the Rigwald's charge was falling off a little bit, so I grabbed a Kondo's Pride out of my stash and 6-socketed and hit 5-link before I got the 4-link that I needed. So we now have a 5-link. I added in Brutality to the mix. Everything else is still the same. Get all the stuff going. The Warcry nodes on the tree, the Ascendancy, very, very good. That extra damage, if I've Warcried recently from exerted attacks, is just like makes my exerted attacks way better. That's steel infused. He still was able to bleed out. On the passive tree here, came over here. I tried to use an intuitive leap here to see. I wanted to get dirty techniques, and it will not reach. It goes into it, but it won't let me allocate that point. So wound up going with this GG Cobalt Jewel that I have. Fizz.multi, global crit, global fizz, and life. That's just an amazing jewel for this build specifically. Warcry. And it just like stacks up the rage. It gets you going. And then I can use the Rallying Cry when I need to do some damage. But I don't want to use the Rallying Cry like early on in the zone before I have any minions up, because it kind of scales the exerted attacks. Exerted attacks deal more damage per affected ally. So you kind of need allies for it to work. And Herald of Purity allows for that. So the more I've thought about it, I don't think that multi-strike is the play, nor is Crimson Storm. The weapons I'm going to swap into once I get to like level 69 are going to like scale my dot multi based on my rage. And I think the play is just like do one big hit and cause the bleed and keep going. And then try and scale the AoE as much as I can. Just do like one big cleave and those enemies will die, and just keep running like that. Currently, that's not the case. They're not dying up just yet. But that's my idea. Especially if we can use like the exerts to scale the bleed damage. I still am unsure how exactly that wording comes out from the Ascendancy. But I'm going to have much slower weapons, so like even with blitz charges I might be able to pull it off. Oh, and speaking of Ascendancy, I did grab Aspect of Carnage as well. But yeah, it says exert attacks deal more attack damage. That one is there. That doesn't seem like it would affect bleed. But this says exert attacks deal more damage per affected ally. I don't know if that would affect the bleed. I don't know. Come on. Just below 25 rage, and then I Warcry. I need to get the Corrupting Fever on. I don't need the Blood Rage in here, because I'm not going to gain Frenzy charges anyways. There is an Ascendancy for swords that gives you 8% chance to gain a Frenzy charge on hitting a unique enemy. That will probably come into play for the final version of this build. I have 2 main builds planned. I'm going to start off with the Rigwald's Sword Axe combo and see if we can make the bleed scaling work with that. Seems how those weapons drop much more commonly now in the current patch, so I want to see what the potential is there. And then we're gonna switch probably out of bleed entirely and go into impale stacking with reflections using the Savior and Paradoxica. And given that Cleave gives you a bunch of extra, like added flat fizz, probably going to be real spicy, but who knows? We'll have to see. And maybe then at that point, maybe multi-strike will come back in, but I don't think it's the play for the bleed, unless there's something I haven't thought of yet. That was a really terribly scary situation. Alright, there is Kitava. Oh, no, we gotta kill the rest of the core. And the Corrupting Fever, it looks like it fell off. It's hard to keep the Corrupting Fever up. Like, it almost needs an increased duration on it. I guess maybe that would affect the debuff and the buff on me. So yeah, maybe an increased duration is good there if I'm not going to go with this speed. Currently, I've got 1, 2, 3, 4 sockets available. One of them is going to be Blasphemy with the vulnerabilities, so that takes up 2 of the 4. Then we got a 6th link, so we need to get a 6th linked into this. Which, like, if I'm going to be doing damage with bleeds, it's probably going to be Deadly Ailments. Alright, mission accomplished. We have made it 2 maps. 2 more passives here. Probably you're going to go right here for the time being, because even with that, resists are not up there. I need to craft a helmet and boots as well. Yeah, we're getting there. Level 64, this is level 65. The stuff's starting to be available. We're getting really close. So I can throw a 6th link on. And then we get the AoE vulnerabilities. So, like, with the vulnerability and the Flesh and Stone. So, Flesh and Stone enemies take 10% increased physical damage. Maim enemies take 10% increased physical damage. That's 20. And then the vulnerability is 37. It's 57% increased physical damage taken on enemies without using Pride. Pride might be better than the Flesh and Stone Maim, but there's a lot of mastery stuff. 50% increased mana reservation efficiency of stance skills. Like, that's huge. Like, that makes it much less cost there. Also, this increased effective non-curse auras from your skills on enemies. I don't know if that would scale both the Flesh and Stone and Maim, but there's still lots to test, and that's all I've got for today. We will continue this, though, after the Gucci Hobo event starting tomorrow. But yeah, I'd like to thank you for watching. If you enjoyed this video, definitely hit the like button, as it really helps the channel out a lot. Subscribe, make sure you don't miss more videos from me. If you'd like to help support my channel, please consider using the super thanks, the heart icon just below the video, or by joining to become a member. And I'll see you on the next one. Cheers.